Just recently, we had the coldest day in Colorado history since before this 1994 12-valve Cummins was even manufactured, and very likely the single coldest morning that this truck has ever seen in its 260,000-mile lifespan. So I decided to see if no more than a block heater could get this truck fired up and all the way to the office, and here's what happened. If you haven't seen this truck before, we've done a ton of videos on TFL Classics with it since I bought it in 2020, and the truck has gone through many changes, including a whole host of modifications to the powertrain, some of which make it harder to drive in the winter. But just how much does the modified fuel system impact cold weather performance? Thanks to the block heater, the truck starts easily even with advanced timing on the injection pump. But will it drive? Now, I'm on the road moving, and despite the block heater, that is as fast as I can go. Over 25, it starts to die out. The truck actually just did die, and it just died again. Because my fuel is gelling up. So the auto parts store is just down the road. Come on. All right, let's get this thing looked over there. This is the turn to get off the main road and head toward the auto parts store. So let's see if we can solve this. Since the block heater doesn't warm the tank and the fuel was clearly gelling, I decided to head over to the auto parts store for some anti-gel fuel additive. However, all of the fast-acting additives were sold out, so I bought what they had in stock and went for another test run. All right. Well, the truck started up. The Front Range of Colorado doesn't usually get this cold. This is the coldest that I've ever driven this truck in. I mean, even up in the mountains, it's not usually this bad. So it still seems like it's hesitating for sure. Yeah, the truck's breaking up again. Should I pull over? Probably. Okay. All right, I'm gonna pull back into a parking lot and Jesus, and just use a bunch more of that additive. Not great. Not great. Oh yeah, and then there it goes. So, coasting into the parking lot of my local grocery store, which, I mean, better than getting stuck on Highway 287 here in Lafayette. Let's see if I just can't coast to a good spot. Come on! Okay. See, it's starting up happier. It just doesn't want to keep running. Alright, I'm just going to add a bunch more additive and see how she goes. In order to try quickly ungelling the fuel system, I increased the mixture of anti-gel that I had on hand and removed the fuel filter to give it a 50-50 mix of additive and diesel fuel, and to try and let it settle into the tank and the rest of the fuel system with some idling and slow speed driving. So right now this is a process of learning for me, because this is the first that it's gotten this cold on the Front Range since I've bought this truck, which has been almost 3 years, I think. So I had this truck for a while, but never in this much cold. So learning about these additives, I went over to the auto parts store and the only additive that they had wasn't a self-proclaimed fast-acting additive because, well, I guess some of the guys that have been driving these trucks longer than I did knew that it was going to be necessary for today. So I put in some of that additive, and right now I'm sitting, letting it work its way into the fuel system and actually do what it does. I'm in a big parking lot here, so what I can do is I can wait for a while, try and let this mix into the fuel system, and then try my hand at carrying some speed through this parking lot to see if it starts to break up at higher RPM, because idling, like right now, it's perfectly happy. It's just once you start to try and pick up some speed, then it starts to break up, and after it starts to break up, it doesn't even want to idle. The other thing that I'm noticing is that even though the truck's been running for about half an hour, the temp gauge is not really moving off of 140. So my coolant is not heating up. So yeah, it's cold. After well over an hour of trying, I needed to get to the office, so sadly I decided to cave and call for a ride, leaving my truck in place until a warmer day. Here is part of the problem that this truck had in cold temperatures. This is an aftermarket AirDog lift pump that pulls fuel from the fuel tank and adds a little bit of extra fuel pressure going to the injection pump. And this is the fuel filter. So no longer is the fuel filter under the hood of the truck and seeing heat from the engine. Now they actually make some additions that you can add to these fuel pumps in order to introduce some extra heat over here, because this, from as best as I can figure out, was the choke point when the fuel started to gel up. And from what I've seen on forums, it seems like it's not an uncommon issue for people that have heavily modified diesel trucks that have lift pumps. If you don't have one of those heaters and you end up in extreme cold temperatures, then you can have that effect. It's why they make that additional fuel heater product that you can buy. So my hope was that this truck would be able to run just with the block heater, and before this happened I had no idea that there was an additional heater that you could get for the lift pump. But now I have that on the way, so that if we get another day where it's deep into negative temperatures, that won't be an issue. And it goes to show, if you know it's going to be well into negative temperatures, well, a lot of the auto parts stores might be sold out of any diesel anti-gel additives, so it's definitely worth having that in your tank beforehand. But I mean, since that day, the truck has been just fine. Now that it's warmed up a little bit, it's running and driving exactly as it always has. So that's all for this video. Be sure to head over to alttfl.com to see everything that we're doing with brand new and also vintage vehicles, and we'll catch you all in the next video.